How can we avoid Omicron? Computational biologist Chase Nelson gives us some tips.
Academia Sinica researcher Alex Teachey tells me why this photo means so much to astronomers.
And Leslie pays a tribute to Dr. Cheng in #Taiwan. This is Taiwan Insider. Welcome to the show. COVID cases are surging in Taiwan. With most of the cases mild, how concerned should we be? Well, I spoke with a computational biologist in Taiwan who's been analyzing Taiwan's COVID situation. This is what Chase Nelson had to say.
There's a couple of pieces of good news about Omicron. It's that it's slightly less severe than some of the other variants like Delta. And another piece of good news is that Taiwan is highly vaccinated. However, Omicron is also very contagious and can be very dangerous to the unvaccinated. And my primary concern really has to do with two things. The first is hospitals and healthcare workers becoming overwhelmed by the sheer number of cases that are calling in for tests and being admitted for severe complications. And the second one is that of our 75 and older population, a whole 20% are not vaccinated. That means they have 0 doses. So they are at very high risk from severe disease and death from Omicron.
And we see that most of those dying recently have been the elderly.
Absolutely. The elderly and the unvaccinated are definitely at the highest risk from COVID-19, even Omicron. And that is evidenced by the recent Omicron outbreak in Hong Kong, where they made up a large fraction of the deaths there as well.
For us who still do not want to get COVID, how can we protect ourselves from COVID?
It's all a risk-benefit balance, really. You know, how much do you want to keep living your life as normal, and how much precaution should you take? One of the things that I think that everyone can do is to continue to wear masks, even when it's a situation where there isn't necessarily a rule that you have to do so. So, for example, at the gym. You can also skip gatherings that you don't have a strong desire to attend, because obviously if people don't get together, the virus can't transmit between them. And there are other really important things too, like opening windows and increasing ventilation. So
the easiest way to catch Omicron is by being in the same room or having a conversation with someone who has it?
Absolutely. There's a pretty solid consensus now that the majority of COVID-19 infections occur when people breathe shared air. If you're in an indoor, enclosed space where you are sharing air with someone that has COVID-19, you are at highest risk. So by implication, you can help to lower that risk by, number one, opening windows. That helps dilute the virus concentration indoors. And then another thing is just to move activities outside.
What about someone who's had COVID and has recovered? Are they still contagious?
So if they have recovered from COVID-19 and they're negative, say on a rapid antigen test, then they should not be contagious anymore. Now, it's also important to say you can have a false negative. So, any test is not perfect. And if you have symptoms, even symptoms just like a cold, I think a safe bet is to assume you have COVID until you are sure you're negative.
What are the most obvious symptoms of having COVID?
Right. So it actually has taken the world a long time to catch up to this officially, but the top symptoms of COVID right now just match a common cold. So runny nose, fatigue, sore throat, all of these things that you'd normally associate with a cold, especially in the vaccinated people, could very well mean that you have COVID, and in fact, they are the most common symptoms.
So tell us, what do you expect from the death rate? We see it climbing pretty quickly.
Right. That's a great question. It's known from other outbreaks across the world that deaths, the counting of them, does lag behind the counting of cases. That can be anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. And so it's important to realize that the huge number of cases that we're seeing right now may only translate into severe outcomes a little later. And that, to me, means that we need to stay vigilant and continue to take precautions, especially to make sure that our healthcare workers don't get overwhelmed in the coming weeks.
That's a lot of great advice from Chase Nelson. I've been opening the windows ever since I talked to him. Next up, Staś tells us about this week's big scientific breakthrough.
A team of scientists from Taiwan and around the world has created the first ever picture of the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. Well, because it's a black hole, light can't escape it, so we can't see it directly. But what we can see is the glowing layers of gas and other matter spinning at incredible speeds around the black hole itself. I spoke to Academia Sinica astronomer Alex Teachey to find out what it takes to make this kind of image.
When it comes to radio telescopes, what's so amazing about these instruments in particular is that you can use telescopes in different parts of the world, separated thousands of kilometers from one another, and they can work in concert to actually simulate one giant telescope. So in the case of the Event Horizon Telescope, they have multiple sites all around the world, including at the South Pole in Antarctica. And so they combine all the data from these different telescopes. It's a huge amount of data. 3.5 petabytes of data go into making this one image. And there's no internet hardwire from the South Pole. So they literally take these hard drives and ship them across the world, bring them all into one place, and correlate the data with a supercomputer. So this is, what's called very long baseline interferometry. We've been doing it for decades, but really this is, sort of the crowning achievement of that technique.
I mean, as someone who has watched the movie Interstellar and, other sci-fi kind of classics, perhaps of older times, I already feel like I have a pretty good idea what a black hole looks like. Why is this image a big deal? Didn't we already have an idea what it looked like? And how is this photo, which, to all appearances looks like quite a blurry photo of a black hole, how is this going to help?
Sure, yeah. So theory, in many cases in astronomy, really can get way out ahead of us. So you mentioned Interstellar before. They had a famous physicist, astronomer, Kip Thorne, who worked on that film to produce the image that we saw. And so, they've been able to predict what these things should look like. But theory is always just one piece of the puzzle, right? We always need the observational side to come in and make sure that the theory really all checks out. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not really right. And this was really an incredibly challenging image to make. So this group, the Event Horizon Telescope's really a consortium, astronomers from all over the world, 13 different institutions, including Academia Sinica here in Taiwan. Actually, we have a lot of astronomers here that worked on this. It's challenging because it's exceptionally small on the sky. You can imagine if there was a piece of fruit like an orange on the surface of the moon, and how small that would appear to us here on the Earth. That's basically the size of this black hole at the center of the galaxy, exceptionally small. And in this case, it's also changing its appearance on the order of a few minutes. It's rapidly changing. So you can imagine trying to take a clear picture of a spinning wheel or a ceiling fan or something like that. When the object is changing its image rapidly, how do you get a clear image? So this was very challenging. You mentioned that it looks kind of blurry, and it is, but really it's still just the most amazing image that we can possibly get, and it's going to be a long time before we can improve on this. It could take a little more data, might be able to do a little bit better, but this just is far and away better than anything that we've seen, but for one of these supermassive black holes that we observed a couple of years ago. I mean,
that brings me on to my next question, which is that when I saw this headline, I had deja vu. I almost thought I was like, have I not seen this? Has it not happened already? Because we saw headlines, I think it was 3 years ago. And those were, I obviously went back and checked that the first ever picture of any black hole, as this one is in the Milky Way. I mean, why is that significant? And why, what can this picture teach us that the other one can't?
Well, actually, these images, the folks that have been working on this are saying they actually look quite similar. So it's a nice confirmation of what we expect to see. But, more broadly, when we are studying these things, you really want to do a compare and a contrast. I mean, you can imagine trying to understand everything about humanity by studying a single human being. you'd probably get a lot wrong, right? There's a lot more to understand about the universe or anything if you are able to look at a population.
Speaking of stars, the list of nominees of the Taipei Film Festival Awards is out. Here are some of this year's nominees.
The nominees for the annual Taipei Film Awards have been announced. American Girl won 12 nominations, including Best Narrative Feature, Best Actress, Best Newcomer, and Best Director. The film is director Fiona Rand's autobiographical story of returning to Taiwan from the U.S. at age 13. Till We Meet Again, a fantastical romance story, won 11 nominations. Goddamned Asura won 9 nominations. The horror film Incantation also received 9 nominations. The director of the Polish drama Leave No Traces was nominated for the International New Talent Award. Other nominees include the directors of Costa Brava, Lebanon, Convenience Store, and Beautiful Beings. American Girl director Fiona Rand and Little Blue director Li Yifang were the only 2 Taiwanese filmmakers nominated for the New Director Awards. These are the films and filmmakers that were nominated among 268 entries. The awards saw a third less entries than the year before. Taipei Film Festival President Liao says that's because the pandemic led to the suspension of a lot of filmmaking. Many production houses have switched to producing works for OTT platforms as well. The Taipei Film Festival will be held from June 23rd to July 9th. Tickets will be sold through OpenTix beginning June 12th, and the winners will be revealed at the award ceremony on July 9th.
Dr. John Cheng died last week while stopping a shooter at the Irvine Taiwanese Presbyterian Church. Leslie honors him in this week's hashtag.
This week, we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to talk about something heavy. There's no real way to ease into it, so let's just jump straight in. On May 15th, there was a shooting at a Taiwanese church in Laguna Woods, Orange County, California. According to police reports, gunfire broke out at around 1:26 p.m. during a church luncheon. The shooter supposedly sealed off the exits to prevent people from escaping before going on his rampage. 1 person was killed and 5 were injured. Now, there's been a lot of speculation online about the shooter, his identity, and his motives. I'm not interested in any of that. A, I don't want to put the focus of the story on a cold-hearted killer, and B, there's a lot of conflicting information about who this person is and why he did what he did. Until we have precise answers, I don't feel comfortable talking about any of that. This is all I'm going to include about the shooter. Police say he's a 68-year-old man from Las Vegas. Instead, let's focus on the victims. More specifically, let's focus on the victims' heroism. By the time police showed up to the scene of the crime, the shooter had been subdued and tied up. This is Dr. John Cheng. He's a doctor specializing in sports medicine, and he was there on the day of the shooting, attending the church event with his mother. According to witnesses, as soon as shooting broke out, Dr. Cheng tackled the gunman in an attempt to disarm him. Dr. Cheng's actions gave churchgoers the opportunity to step in and subdue the shooter. Tragically, Dr. Cheng was shot several times and pronounced dead at the scene. The Orange County Sheriff said had it not been for Dr. Cheng, it is no doubt that there would be numerous additional victims in this crime. Dr. Cheng was 52 years old. He had a wife and 2 kids. The man is no doubt a hero, though he probably didn't know it in his final moments. And if you want to know what kind of person Dr. Cheng was, well, there's a 10-year-old video online where he talks about why he wanted to become a doctor. In short, he was a guy that cared very much about other people. While many people online are scrambling to understand more about the shooter and why he did what he did, this episode of Hashtag Taiwan is dedicated to Dr. John Cheng. The man is a hero and he should be celebrated as such. Thank you for what you did, Dr. John Cheng.
Before we leave, here's a look at some of the other stories on our radar.
On Monday, Taiwan began giving out additional vaccine booster shots to the elderly and other high-risk groups. Only people who got their 3rd vaccine dose at least 5 months ago are eligible for the additional shots. Right now, 3 brands of COVID-19 vaccines are available to patients: Moderna, Pfizer-BioNTech, and Medigen. The annual Mazu pilgrimage will set off from Gongtian Temple in Miaoli County on Friday in a Taoist tradition dating back to 1863. A palanquin carrying Goddess Mazu's statue will lead a procession to Chaotian Temple in Yunlin County before heading back to Miaoli. Compared to last year, nearly a quarter more people and 3 times as many vehicles will take part in the 400-kilometer journey despite Taiwan's recent surge in COVID-19 infections. Followers need to have received 3 COVID vaccine shots, practice social distancing, and wear face masks. Tainan's privately run Taiwan Shofu University surprised its students and faculty by announcing on Tuesday that it will soon shut down. All 881 students will need to transfer out. The school was struggling with dwindling enrollment even before the COVID-19 pandemic hit due to Taiwan's extremely low birth rates. The university's president says the decision was unavoidable.
And we're back in the studio, joined by our newest colleague at RTI, Itamar Waxman. Welcome to the team.
Welcome, Itamar.
Hey everyone, really nice to be here.
We're glad to have you. So this week, I wanted to ask my colleagues, based on my interview with Dr. Alex Teachey from Academia Sinica about black holes, and particularly I was inspired. Yeah, I know, very cool. Inspired by talking about Interstellar. What is your favorite sci-fi movie of all time? Itamar, when you go first.
Okay, I'll go first.
Yeah, you go for it.
All time, it's really hard to say because I do like sci-fi movies, but I actually have to give a shout out to a undervalued sci-fi movie, I think, of recent years. Blade Runner 2049 with Ryan Gosling. I don't know if any of you saw that one.
Yeah, I
haven't seen it.
I watched the end of it. Yeah, did you watch the original as well?
I did. I think this one is much better than the original.
Yeah,
the original with Harrison Ford, I think, is a good movie, but I think Ryan Gosling does a better job acting than Harrison Ford.
You sound like a big Ryan Gosling.
I think, he's one of those actors that always gets typecast. He always does the same role, but he just does it so well, and I don't know, you have to just appreciate
What
it.
is the role, kind of the pouting
Yeah,
man?
he's kind of like misunderstood, sort of mysterious, a little like sad.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's always doing the same role, but I think the setting was amazing. The CGI was incredible.
Yeah.
Like the costumes were really good.
Visually, it was
visually stunning.
Yeah.
And then I think the vibe they got for like what do they call, like a future where things have just gone wrong, I think is really good.
Dystopian
Yeah,
future.
dystopian future.
Yeah.
Really good.
What about you, Natalie?
I love this movie. I don't know if you guys seen it. Arrival.
Oh!
It is so touching.
Yeah.
There you go. Look at us
So
sitting on the same
touching.
sofa. It's a great
It's
movie.
amazing.
Fantastic
So
movie.
good.
My favorite movie.
We don't
What
want to give
year is
any
that
of it
from?
away because, if
it's
we
a
say
great-
anything, we'll probably give something away.
Yeah, but it's from
touching.
within the last 5 years
Right.
at least, or maybe 6 years or so. It's about kind of aliens that come to planet Earth, and it's a linguist who's set out to go.
I did see that actually.
Communicate.
That
Oh,
was
really?
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A brilliant movie,
It
and
was-
thoroughly
I was
recommend
touched
it.
as a mom.
Yeah,
because,
no, it's a very, very
That's
touching
true,
character as a
film.
mom.
Really, really good. Really
Very
amazing
touching.
film. So, well, there you go. Say
Gotta go see that movie. Gotta go see it.
doubly recommended. Anyway, that's just about it from us, Taiwan Insider for this week. I'm Staś Butler.
And I'm Itamar Waxman.
And I'm Natalie Tso.
Make sure you follow us on social media.
And you can also follow us on YouTube and Facebook.
Also on Twitter, and we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below.
Anyway, that's it from us for this week. Bye, guys.
Bye.